I grew up and my dad was an artist when I was growing up, and everything was all connected, and it was all about how life's connected and there's meaning in everything. And I think I took some of that with me into adulthood. And so this Montana run idea was like, I'm from Montana, my parents are from Montana, and I need a way to, share that love for the state that I grew up in that's changing, and share running with people that have been affected by cancer. And at the same time, have this personal motivation to find a solution for the emotional pain of that really strenuous and stressful year of taking care of her.
Episode 1127, we have a revisited episode with Becca Boylan running across Montana 475 miles to deal with the grief of her mother's cancer.
You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hey friends, before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to share a couple of things with you. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you probably know that I have a book out, and the book is called 99 Words, Building a Better Life. I wrote it to serve as a toolkit to help people to sort out solid belief systems that they can build a life on. And it's a lot less about what to believe, a lot more about how to sort it out, what matters to you and what is truth and that sort of thing. I bring it up because in way of letting people know that the book exists, I've been interviewing on other podcasts as a guest, and I was thinking it would be a really nice thing to do to share some of my favorite podcasts that I've interviewed on with you, not so you can listen to my interview, but just so you know about the podcast. I know that people that love to listen to podcasts like variety, they like to listen to more than just one show, and I know that I personally will shift between shows I like to listen to, and then I come back and revisit again. And so I thought maybe it would be helpful if I shared some podcasts with you that I thought were really super cool. So today, I want to talk about Joe Domino. He has a couple of podcasts, Famous Interviews and Neon Jazz, and he's just got a great spirit about him. And I was on the Famous Interviews podcast with him where he talks to people about what they're doing in their lives and all that sort of thing. There's a lot of music involved and a lot of just inquiry into what makes people tick. Really enjoyed his show. That, again, it's Famous Interviews with Joe Domino. Another one, which is interesting, is Project Mindfully Outdoors, and that's with Michael Martin. This podcast is more contemplative, and it's about meditating in nature and connecting with nature deeply to look for healing. And I really like that approach. Obviously, I believe in it. It is a lot of what the Adventure Sports Podcast is all about. So Michael Martin, Project Mindfully Outdoors, might want to give that a listen. I found it refreshing to talk to him because he's just so willing to share, kind of the deeper things of the human heart and how the outdoors can have a significant impact there. So 2 podcasts for you to consider. Thanks for joining us again today. And this revisited episode was hosted by Mason. It's going to be fantastic. Hope you enjoy.
Hey folks, welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mason. Today's episode is with Becca Boylan, who very recent, a couple months ago, finished running 475 miles across the state of Montana. And why she did it is an even crazier story. She spent a year nearly at her mother's side as she dealt with cancer, and to, as she says, metabolize and kind of work through the living grief and the emotional just challenge that was to be there with her. She ran across the state. Her mother did make it through, but right before she started this run, she was re-diagnosed. And so Becca's going to tell us that story about the impact of combining physical challenge with emotional challenge. We see this a lot, and I encourage you, if you're going through something, find an outlet like this. Find a challenge to do. It inspires so many people. It's a great way to deal with it, and you're just changed on the other side. It sounds like Becca's life will be forever changed. And by the way, she's a 5th generation Montanan. Montanan? Is that the right word? On both sides, not just one side, but her mom and her dad. So rare breed, as I say, because there's not a lot of, folks that have been around in the same spot that long anymore. But all right, let's go ahead and dive into Becca's story. Becca Boylan, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good. As is tradition, I always ask, where's home for you? And if that's not where you're coming from right now, where are you coming from?
Yeah. I was lucky enough to grow up in Bozeman, Montana. My family's been here for 5 generations and stuck around, and I'm still here, so I haven't left.
You are a rare breed.
Yeah.
5th generation Bozeman, Montanan.
Yeah, it's getting rare.
It is getting rare. So I guess pioneer folks that you just stayed put. Is that kind of the story?
Yeah. Yep. I had great great grandmas from Sweden and great great grandpas from Ireland come over, and they just hung out, and on both my mom and dad's side. So both parents were 4th generation, making me a double 5th generation to the Gallatin Valley.
No kidding. So, I mean, I only ask because being from Florida, it's kind of just lots of people moving in. I'm 3rd generation. And I know a lot of old timers, 5, 6, 7 generation Floridians. And the story is, there's just not that many of us. And so for you, even more so, Montana's just getting inundated with people. Is there that conversation or kind of that narrative constantly like, it's just changing around us, but we've been here?
Yeah, absolutely. Specifically to Bozeman and the Gallatin Valley. I think COVID didn't really do us any favors, and neither did the show Yellowstone. So between those two things, and Bozeman's really beautiful and people want to get out of the cities, we've kind of blown up here, and it's bittersweet. It's hard to see, fields that have been in homes and families for decades be, torn down and built into condos, and that's hard. It's hard to have a bunch of new people in town and new familiar faces and new thoughts and ways of beings, and to feel kind of like, your values are kind of like pushed to the wayside. It's a little difficult, but it's okay. Growth is good sometimes.
Sometimes. We're dealing with that. I hate to bring this up, but there's a funny connection here. Florida's a small peninsula, tons of people moving here, but there's there's panthers here and black bears, and we're trying to protect as much as possible, but it's just getting turned to houses. It's beautiful. We made a film, like a Nat Geo film, National Geographic film earlier this year, telling this story. It was in theaters all over the state, and the director is actually from Bozeman. Eric Bendick works with Grizzly Creek Films. If you've ever heard of Grizzly Creek, I think they make mostly like nature documentaries for like Discovery Channel and whatnot. But anyway, he's a Floridian. I just had him on this show, and he's become a good friend, but he's right there in Bozeman, and he's telling our stories. And I want to see like, hey man, that's, that's almost the same exact plot of this, basically what you just said, what's happening to Bozeman too. So very weird connection there, but that's really cool.
Well, maybe I should find Eric and we should have a talk or something.
Yeah, definitely, because that's his, love is that area, and I know that y'all being filmmakers with Coyote Collective, I'm sure they're very well established. Grizzly Creek Films, and I think they've got a couple, like, I don't know if they got Oscars or what, but they've got some serious cred. Cool. But anyway, I'll cut all this. So. All right, born and raised Montanan. Now I know you too. You also come from a big family. Tell me about that. How that shaped you.
Yeah. So I was actually born in Jackson Hole, oddly enough. So my parents had a ski phase and decided to be ski bums in Jackson Hole. So I was accidental, born in Jackson Hole on accident, and then my family, my parents came back to the Gallatin Valley to be around their parents and my grandparents, and I'm the oldest of 6. So it's myself, and then I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers, and we're all 2 years apart, 18 months apart.
Wow, the 2-year plan.
Yeah. Yeah, and I grew up, I actually grew up homeschooled for the most part. So I grew up riding horses, running around town, like doing big family adventures as a kid. And I think that kind of made me able to think outside the box. And it definitely instilled a lot of self-confidence in me to grow up that way.
And also being the oldest, I'm sure you felt or you feel a pressure to set the tone almost.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. So, what do your siblings think about? Like, are they also, they probably had the same childhood. Are they also adventurous, outdoorsy like you are, or y'all kind of just taking different paths?
Oh no, we're all similar in that way. We're all kind of rough and wild and crazy and like to push the limits and try and find something to get into, whether it's fishing or hunting or running or whatever it could be.
Oh man, well, speaking of that, I do want to, I know our time's a little limited. I want to talk about your adventure running across Montana, and I know why you did this, but I don't know why this specific challenge versus something else. Can you talk to us about your run across Montana? Why across the state you love? Why the route you chose even? Just tell us about like where this idea, the very beginning seed of this idea started.
Yeah, well, it actually started with a cancer diagnosis, oddly enough, and in June of 2001, my mom was diagnosed suddenly with acute myeloid leukemia. She was super sick. We thought it was COVID. She went in and she had a white blood cell count of over 200,000. Typical is 2,000. And it was enough of, a shock to her system that she had blood clots in both her lungs and in her legs. And as the oldest kid, I spent close to 365 days with her as a caregiver, taking care of her in the hospital in Utah. And we did chemo. She had chemo resistance genes. We did a bone marrow transplant, which is 100 days of outpatient care in Salt Lake and 30 days in a closed bone marrow transplant unit. And during her treatment, I would leave and I'd go run the trails behind the hospital in Salt Lake. And I'd go sneak onto the track at the University of Utah and run. And it was this very cathartic mechanism that got me through her cancer diagnosis and her leukemia treatment. And, she got better. It was successful. And in the middle of her treatment, I ended up signing up for the rut, which is this 50K, mountain 50K. That's insanely difficult in Big Sky. And to give her something to look forward to. And, she ended up getting better and was able to come to that race. And I felt like there was something inside of me that still needed some resolution. And when you go through something trying and something difficult, a lot of times the body needs to express that in a form of like a challenge or pain, and like there's all this weight of emotional pain that people carry around with them. And I was feeling that. And I came up with this plan to run across my home state to honor my mom, to honor my role in her cancer treatment, to honor everyone that had been affected by cancer and give everyone else that I knew an opportunity to join in this, to use running as a mechanism for therapy and community and reflection upon the hardships that life can have and bring. And so that was kind of like the inception of the idea, was a personal challenge that would allow me to metabolize the emotional pain of her cancer treatment, even though it was successful. It was like very isolating, and a year is a long time to be, going through
that's a part of it that probably gets overlooked maybe is that's a long time for you, especially at that age, where there's a lot you could be doing to spend. Yeah. I mean, I guess where you almost basically moved there, that's about a year.
Yeah, and a lot of it was actually driving. Like I would drive in between Salt Lake and Bozeman, so 7-hour car rides. I was 26 at the time, just freshly broke off an engagement, like high stress time for me as a young adult. And you just kind of have to like push aside everything else in life and just focus on like survival. And AML, like my mom's particular genetics and some of the other clinical factors, her survival rate was and is about 20%. and which isn't great, and so she was only 56. I had two younger brothers that were still in the house. One was in high school still. So there was a lot of like responsibility and weight on me as the oldest kid with a degree in neuroscience and cell biology, who worked in the ER for 5 years, to step up to the plate and take care of a mom that was really sick when everyone else in my family really didn't have the time or resources or experience to be able to do that. And I needed an outlet, and running was that for me. So running was that saving grace for me during her transplant. And afterwards, once she was considered, quote unquote, in remission, I found that I still had this emotional pain and I had to get rid of it in some way. And like, I'm a huge believer in turning challenges into growth and turning negative into positive. And there's always a way to turn a situation into something positive and beautiful. And so I decided to make this run about running my home state bigger than myself, and invite other people along the way to do it if they were affected by cancer, or if they had emotional pain that they wanted to kind of metabolize through running.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'm the oldest. My mom's about the same age, funny enough. She had me young. And
Really?
yeah, and it's just like, I think it'd be the similar, like I just have to do it. It's just fall on me. I don't know if my they're all boys, younger brothers would do it, but, or could do it. But yeah, that's, dang, would I be able to do that? That's what I'm thinking right now. I don't know. So kudos to you for that. So y'all probably obviously bonded, or at least had a different relationship after that experience than you did beforehand.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And her cancer diagnosis, like my mom and I weren't very close, and my parents at the time had a really kind of rocky marriage and were considering divorce, adding to the stress of everything.
God, yeah. That's better to make sense now.
Right. Yeah. But in a way, like, her cancer diagnosis was one of the most beautiful things that could have happened at that time in our lives, because it really brought our family together. My parents are now together and more in love than they've ever been through it. And, it taught me compassion and empathy, and my whole perspective about life changed because of this. I remember like walking into the hospital room the first day she was diagnosed, and I'd left work at the ER, drove 7 hours nonstop, just tears streaming down my face, got to the hospital room in Salt Lake at University of Utah in Huntsman. And, the first thing my mom said to me was, she's like, like, why was I so bitter for so long? Why was I so angry and so bitter for so long? And that was her regret, is anger and bitterness. And that really like struck me. And having a family member that could die literally like the next day, but they're not dead yet, right? It's like that slow motion death, that slow motion loss that's so difficult and so unique to cancer. That really set my perspective for life. And, nothing's important. Like, the things that are important, there's like maybe 5 things, and it's time with family, like loving other people and going about the world with love, and like maybe 2 or 3 other things, but 95% about what we're worried at, like, oh, my coffee was cold this morning. Oh, I don't like my haircut today, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter in the big picture, and that just totally changed my perspective about importance and priorities and what life is really about. And then the second thing that was really beautiful about her leukemia diagnosis is she found sobriety. So my mom was an alcoholic for a long time and struggled with addiction. And that's one of the reasons why I turned to running, because I knew I couldn't turn to like a substance as a young adult. I just couldn't. That wasn't an option. So I just chose exercise instead, and it's been a really beautiful journey since then.
Wow, that's good on you. That's sorry to keep bringing up the connections, but I come from a family of alcoholics and actually work for a non-alcoholic brewery. And, sobriety is a major reason people drink us a lot. I mean, it's a minority of people, but still we're very popular in that community. So my dad self-admitted alcoholic when I was born and quit. And yeah, there's still some in the family that are dealing with it. But
Yep.
I totally, something replaces the addiction,
Yes.
so or at least can fill that. And so running is a great alternative
Yes.
because there's so many benefits. Well, all right. So sometimes when this kind of stuff, you obviously don't want to leave your mom's side. There's like, it's your mom.
Yeah.
There's this year that you spent bonding and your relationship growing and changing and in her process. Then you had this idea to run across the state. Was that at all scary? Like, now I'm going to be, away from everybody I love. Or did you view it like that? Maybe you didn't view it like that.
The Adventure Sports Podcast has a new sponsor, Infinite Epigenetics. Now, I've turned down a lot of sponsors, actually, because I'm pretty picky about the sorts of things that I want to promote to my friends, you, the Adventure Sports Podcast family. So when Infinite Epigenetics popped up as a possibility, I looked into it a little bit. I was like, what exactly is this? Now, I knew what epigenetics is. That is, epi means top, right? It's kind of like epidermis, the top layer of your skin. Epigenetics is about gene expression that changes how your body works without changing the underlying DNA, and it can even be passed on from generation to generation. What I find fascinating is that your epigenetics are kind of experientially triggered. This means you can actually alter your gene expression. Matter of fact, what you eat, how you sleep, how you move, the supplements you take, even how you manage your stress, it acts like an on-off switch for your genes. That means that your health isn't anchored or fixed in just one way. You can actually change it, and Infinite tells you exactly how. The way this works is you get a kit, you put a tiny little blood sample in it, and you ship it back to them, and they're going to measure 105 health markers. Things like vitamins, cholesterol, metabolism, amino acids, stress markers, immune system health. It's more comprehensive than any single doctor's visit. You don't have to go to a lab. You just test from the comfort of your home. Additionally, epigenetics can predict your risk for some of the top 5 chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease. It gives you a personalized plan to help to prevent them based on your own DNA. This is super cool. You've heard me talk about how adventure sports make us healthier because we're outside, motivated to move and to do tough things that makes our bodies stronger. I love the concept that we can actually reprogram our gene expression. We can get the epigenetics to move from a less healthy gene expression to a healthier gene expression based on lifestyle. And Infinite Epigenetics is here to help you do that. And here's how it works. There's an app that comes with this that will build a personalized 90-day plan to help you lower your disease risk, improve your health, even perhaps slow your aging. And it offers advice about workouts, food, sleep, supplements, all these sorts of things. And you can retest every quarter to watch your numbers improve. Most people find out about disease after it's too late, right? And this is huge because Infinite Epigenetics can help you to look forward and see how you're trending. This is a brand new product. They're still in waitlist mode with thousands of people waiting, but you can skip the wait and lock in founder pricing with my code. Go to infiniteepigenetics.com/ASP and use code ASP to save $150 per test for your entire first year. That's infiniteepigenetics.com/ASP, code ASP. Skip the line, save $150 per test, and start taking control of your health right now. Live infinitely with Infinite Epigenetics. Thanks for listening, and now back to the show.
I didn't view it like that. It was more like life is too short. Like I had this moment of reflection where you're like, life is too short not to do the things that scare you, not to do the things that, like if you look back, like, oh man, I wish I would have done that. Like regret is such a powerful motivator. And at the time my mom was in remission. So my mom had a bone marrow transplant. It was successful and her leukemia went away because of that. And I could go into a whole biology lesson, but essentially the stem cells in your bone marrow make all of your blood cells and all of your immune cells, the majority of them. and her stem cells mutated. So the very genesis of all of her blood making and immune making cells became cancerous and uncontrollable and infunctional. And so the only solution for that is a bone marrow transplant, where they give you horrendous amounts of chemo and then give you a donor bone marrow. So my mom got a donor through the Be the Match donor pool, and they're an international male that was like 24 years old at the time. Jeez. So some random stranger saved my mom's life, which is really cool. But
jeez, that is, golly, that's wild. So this is even more emotional trauma, or not trauma, but just emotional to deal with. And so,
yeah.
Did you say, okay, Montana's not long enough, let me just run across the country at some point?
I thought about it. But then I realized, like, my dad, I grew up and my dad was an artist when I was growing up, and everything was all connected, and it was all about how life's connected and there's meaning in everything. And I think I took some of that with me into adulthood. And so this Montana run idea was like, I'm from Montana, my parents are from Montana, and I need a way to, share that love for the state that I grew up in that's changing, and share running with people that have been affected by cancer. And at the same time, have this personal motivation to find a solution for the emotional pain of that really strenuous and stressful year of taking care of her. And literally was on a run with Connor when I was like, what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to run across the whole state of Montana. And Connor at the time was like, what you should actually do is bike it. And I said, no, I'm going to run it. And literally I always knew I wanted to run from north to south because it's just prettier that way. Eastern Montana is flat and boring. And I wanted to hit all the major small towns that I grew up visiting and grew up becoming fond of, living here. So
I've biked across Montana a couple times, and yeah, east side's kind of slow. Although I have some great friends in Judith Gap, if you've ever heard of
Ooh.
that. Little small town right in the middle of the state. But
yes.
All right, so your route, you wanted to do this, you wanted to metabolize, I think is the word you use.
Yeah.
That's a really very fascinating way. I've never heard it put that way, but that makes a lot of sense. I can envision that. So how did you choose where you wanted to go? Because Montana's a place of beautiful trails. You could have done this without being on any roads. What was the idea to stay on a lot of roads and kind of see your state in that way?
Totally. Yeah. A lot of it came down to functionality. And so Montana has some Indian reservations. So originally it was going to be from Starburst, Montana, which is middle northern Montana by the Canadian border, to Bozeman to West Yellowstone. And I was going to run kind of to Bozeman. And then there's an issue with that because there is a reservation there. And just, I wanted to be respectful of the land and the Native American populations, and not just think that I could just go running through a reservation and feel like I owned, feel like I had autonomy there. So eventually I decided to start in Eureka, Montana, which is more on the west side of the state, because we had some good friends that lived in Eureka that had been affected by cancer. And it just made sense. I spent a couple years in Libby, Montana, and Eureka's pretty close to Libby. And it just made sense to start there and then make my way through the Sealy Swan Valley, which is super beautiful, and then go to Orvando and run through that, and then run into Ennis and then to the Idaho state line. And when I first built the route, there was quite a bit of mountain ridges, and I wanted to run through the Bob Marshall Wilderness. There's a 50-mile stretch through the Bob Marshall with huts that a lot of people backpack on horses. And I wanted to run that with a support crew on foot originally. So I had this whole plan to do kind of a mix of ridges and trails and roads and some in the wilderness area. And 3 days before the start date of the run, which was my mom's diagnosis date of June 12th, I got a phone call from my mom. And after planning for like 9 months and training for 9 months and getting sponsors and getting crews set up and getting a van donated and getting funds for gas and like scratch, essentially, I got a call from my mom, and her cancer had come back 3 days, and she was re-diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia 3 days before the start of my run, almost 2 days to the date of her initial diagnosis day.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So what does that change? What does that do for your trip and the way you're thinking about it, all that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I did is I zipped down to my parents' house, and we had kind of a family meeting, and I was like, Mom, it's okay. I cannot do the run, because I wanted her to start chemo immediately. Her cancer had gone kind of missed for like a month, and it's super aggressive and things can change super quick, like overnight. Her cancer can like just explode overnight. It's very aggressive. And she was like, you know what, Becca, you did so much for me this time. The way you can support me and the way you can take care of me is by doing this run. And it was like totally this moment of selflessness where she's like, I can see that you need this, and I need you to run for me too. Like, I'm going to need something to distract me while I'm in the hospital going through chemo again. And so literally the day I started running, she restarted chemo.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it was just like, it's just so weird how life happens like that, though. Like the timing of that, you're just like, this is insane. Like, what are the chances that it could have been any date, it could have been any day, it could have been any month, any summer. And, it was like literally almost down to the day that she got re-diagnosed on the start date of June 12th and the run start date. I was like, this is kind of a sick joke.
It kind of, I don't know. I take that as just, I don't even know what I mean by this, but just some sort of sign that, all right, now this is what I'm supposed to do. This is part of the script, you know what I mean, of my life. Like I gotta do this. And so I'm sure that made you feel like in some ways more motivated, and others like maybe I should be with her, but her blessing for the adventure, I'm sure, was, a relief of some sort to say, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Tell us about starting this, because it's one thing to say I'm gonna do this, it's gonna be fun, it's gonna be awesome. It's a whole other thing to start on that state line and just start going. From what I could tell, the weather wasn't that great.
Well, yeah. So the first day, it was downpouring rain. And I had my younger sister crewing me that day. We kind of had like some crewing issues because of my mom. So my younger brothers weren't able to come help me like we had planned. And so it was just my younger sister. And she had a 3-year-old daughter with her. And it was just like one of those things where it was like, all right, great. Well, I guess I'm kind of on my own today. And because not a lot of bandwidth with a kid coming along.
And they roll the schedule. That's for sure.
Yep. And so, we started 4 hours later than I wanted to start. I think I started at like 1 p.m. and I was supposed to run 25 miles that day in the rain. And started at the Canadian line and threw on a running belt and threw some gels in my pocket and took off. And literally just like, I'm really lucky where the more I run, the better I feel in that regard. And so by mile 14, I was feeling pretty good. And I ran into town at that point. So the other part of this like whole adventure was I was the one logistically planning everything and building the route and telling people where to be and where to meet me and planning like daily timelines while also running 6 to 8 hours a day. And so like, I don't know how I did it, but somehow it got pulled off. And a lot of it is thanks to, my fiance Connor, who like showed up and helped at the end. And I couldn't have done this project without him. But the first week was really rough. But yeah, I started it and I got drenched within the first like 20 minutes of running, like absolutely drenched, and just was like, well, my only choice is to run 14 miles into town. So I better get going. And literally I had this thought of like, Becca, what are you doing? Like, this is like, I'm not a professional athlete. Like, I'm not even like even close to competitive at running. I just can go forever. And I love it. And so literally I had 14 miles to think about all of these things about why am I doing this? And again, kind of like what you were saying, like this kind of like internal voice was like, you know what? Like, I just know I've been supposed to do, I know that I've supposed to be planning to do this and to do this for like the last 9 months. And I knew that my mom's cancer was to tie into it. And I didn't really know how. And so while I was planning the run, there was this just internal drive. And I was like, I just know I need to do this. And I just feel like I'm supposed to. And then when she got re-diagnosed, all of a sudden, it's like all the pieces fell into place 3 days before the start date. And so I was just kind of like going for it until I knew what it was supposed to be when she got re-diagnosed. And then all of a sudden it all became really clear, like, oh man, like she needs this now. And now it's got so much more meaning behind it. And now it's not just me telling a story of cancer in review from 2 years ago, but now it's me telling a story and drawing parallels between, running, ultra running and physical hardships of running 25 miles a day or whatever with the metaphor, or as a metaphor for a cancer diagnosis rather. And so then it all fell into place literally 3 days before the start. But yeah, like as I was running those first 14 miles, all of that just kind of hit me. And I was like, oh, I am supposed to be doing this. Oh, it's going to be okay. Oh, it's all going to work out because it's worked out so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just kind of putting like some faith into like the universe and, a higher power that like it's all orchestrated. And if you have something on the inside, you got to follow your heart and just trust that it's all going to work out for you. Because if you're doing that and you feel that drive on the inside, chances are the world really needs something like that. And if you can do it, great.
And you might not know exactly how it's going to unfold just because
Yep.
you can't see 400 miles down the road, but you just got to start and keep going, and the pieces will fall into place as you go. And I don't know about you, but sometimes on these big trips, there's a big obstacle or something I'm really anticipating, maybe really nervous about, and then it could be crossing a bridge or a river or some sort of obstacle and going through a city. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're past it. All of a sudden, it's in the rearview mirror, and like, holy cow, all that worrying about that thing's now gone. Was there anything like that on this route that you were kind of like, I don't know about this part?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. There was a section where I had to run through a 2-lane highway, which I think is kind of technically illegal to be running on highways, but I did it.
We won't tell anybody other than
I know,
thousands
so
of
sorry,
people that
but
listen to this.
it was like, and there was no shoulder. It was in this totally dense forest in bear country up in northern Montana. And I'm terrified of bears. I'm terrified. I hate the woods. Like, I had a really scary bear encounter with my dad when I was young. And ever since then, I've totally avoided the woods. And it was so claustrophobic. And I had an inReach, and the trees were so thick, the inReach didn't work. And there was 0 cell service. And so I was stuck running this road for 5 hours, unable to tell my support crew where to find me, where to pick me up, like, hey, like, come check on me. And this part of Montana is also the highest rate of human trafficking and like kidnappings in Montana.
Serious?
On this for serious. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely
gosh.
serious. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, like,
sorry.
unfortunately, Montana has some of that going on, especially in the northern, more remote areas. There's just not a lot of population, and so people get trafficked across that area quite a bit.
Like across the border?
Yeah, and just through different states through that area, because there's, you won't see cars for 30 minutes at a time on the highway.
I've crossed the border at Roosevelt, which is where you were near.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just nothing around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
There's
right.
one saloon there called the Last Chance Saloon. And I was like, all right,
Yeah.
here we go.
That's it. That's all you got.
Yep. Yep.
Golly, that's terrible. And you're running
Yeah.
through the woods in this spot.
Totally in the woods. I had forgotten bear spray, and I had a small like 9mm pistol with me. That was my personal one, just for protection. And you got to be safe out there, and it's part of reality running through
And you had that thing
country
on
like
you.
that.
Golly.
And I had also forgotten that, and so I ran unarmed.
Oh, you forgot the
unaided.
gun too. I thought you said you
Dude,
had the gun.
No,
Oh,
totally, just like
shoot.
totally vulnerable, and couldn't get a hold of my crew. And I was like, well, and so then my mind started playing that like, there's a bear, there's a bear, there's a bear. And for like literally 2 hours, I was like just terrified running, like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna run into bear or Sasquatch, or like I'm gonna get snatched, And finally I was just like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I need to confront this fear. And like it's all in my head. Like I'm gonna be okay. And just literally had to use mind over matter to get through it, because the only solution was to get over it so that I could run faster, so I could get safe sooner. And kind of call out, kind of like that worry in my head of like, oh my gosh, like I'm totally going to get like eaten by a bear here. And was it the smartest decision? Probably not. Did I get lucky? Probably. But also I think a lot of that is just choosing to have control over your mind and the fears and the lies and the scenarios that your mind can tell you.
It'll run rampant.
Totally.
Yeah, I'd say very least take some bear spray next time. But besides that, yeah, you just knowing what's really, honestly, the most dangerous part of this whole thing, as you probably aware well of, is vehicles. And so, it's not the scariest thing because we deal with them every day. But in reality, that's by far the most dangerous part of this is you being on the road a lot of the times. And that's not something that, a lot of people might even bring up if they talk about the dangers of what this would be.
Right.
Bears, I'm sure, are top of the list.
Yeah. Although I did almost step on a rattlesnake, like very legitimately. And that was like maybe the closest I came to any wildlife danger. But yeah, the cars for the most part, like, I don't know if there was some guy that ran across Australia and he talked about cars like purposely trying to like swerve in and like scare him off the road and stuff. And I experienced some of that. And there's a lot of fatigue that goes on in the nervous system when you're constantly running towards oncoming traffic, essentially. And so trying to mitigate that nervous system fatigue was like a really interesting challenge as well.
What do you mean? Do you mean like the having to pay attention so much kind of wears down your senses, or what is that?
Yep. Yeah. Having to be constantly on the alert for potentially getting hit by a car, having to think about, okay, like if I, come around this corner this way and there's a car here, how is that going to play out? And then just the sensory overload of being passed by semi trucks for 5 hours at a time on foot. Oh. And like the sound and the smoke and the like vibrations of it all, it's a lot for a nervous system that's already running. That's already a stress on like your nervous system. And so, because if you do that for long enough, you actually will like kind of mess up your cortisol levels, and then you won't be able to sleep. And then you're really messed up for multi-day. Yeah, then you're really screwed for multi-day runs like this, where it's not just like, oh, I have to make it through 48 hours of running. It's like, no, I have to make it through this for 19 days.
So 19 days, a mix of running. And you got off road for some of it, at least on forest roads. Tell us about some of what you were seeing. I'm just sure just endless amounts of beauty.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, that was what was so wonderful about this endeavor was I got to run through a state that I knew and I loved, and I knew how everything looked, and I got to be surrounded by mountains and fields and cows and ranchers and running underneath the big sky. And so that propelled me just as much as like the running or the thought of like sharing my mom's story or sharing a story of cancer with other people is, yeah, I'd be running and it was really stressful and my body hurt and I was tired and logistically trying to plan things. But then I was surrounded by this total natural beauty that, just totally filled me up as the run kept going. Yeah. And like, I don't know how I don't think you could run 19 days through New York City. There's no way, but you could totally run 19 days through Montana, like easy.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. Did you learn anything new about your state? Maybe I just feel like places that it's actually something I'm going to be talking to someone about specifically soon is like thinking a place until you're forced to explore it in a new way. And you're like, I had no idea this was here, or I've never seen this before. Did you have any sort of realization like that? Like, wow, this is where I call home.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think in general, there was a lot of appreciation for how rural Montana still is. Like, despite Bozeman really growing and, our population influx being unreal right now, Montana is still so rural and there's still so much of it that's untouched and empty and wild. And it was really comforting to see that. And it was really cool to find these small towns on the map that maybe had, a gas station, a bar, and a church, and
the essentials.
And really, yep. Yeah. The essentials. Yep. Yeah. And so it was really cool to there's this little town called Irvando, Montana, that is, it's actually outside of a wildlife area. And it's got this great cafe in there that we had to stop in and saved our butts because we needed food and coffee really bad. And it has a church, a general store, and a cafe and a fishing shop. And that's the town. And it was like, I've heard about it, but I've never been there. And then to go there and run through that place and run through the area that it's a part of was just, it's so cool to see small towns like that still persisting, and run into the general store and there's 10 older guys sitting outside of it all smoking. And they're like, where'd you come from? And I'm like, I came from Canada. And they're like, what? I was like, yeah. And I'm probably like the youngest kid they've seen in 10 years or something. They're all retired and fishing, but it was great.
That was probably the Stray Bullet Cafe or Trixie's Antler Saloon.
How'd you know? Yeah, the Stray Bullet is great.
I'm looking at a map. I don't know that by heart. I'm looking at a map. Anytime I talk, so that's maybe listeners don't know that, but when people are talking, I'm looking at the map of what you're talking about because I want to, when the guest is talking, I'm just like, what's going on here? But yeah, there ain't a whole lot there in Ovando. That's about it. And holy cow! So yeah. You're an anomaly to people's day, too. They see you at the gas station. They see you somewhere. Did you have a hard time knocking out the mileage that you plan to do with just all the people that probably wanted to talk to you?
I didn't. There was a few days where I fell short. My mom ended up in the ICU during the run, and so I had to pause the run for 3 days to drive down. And she had a really serious medical complication with her chemo. And it was, we almost lost her then. And so I had to leave to go spend time with her in the ICU. And then there was a couple days where just the mental fatigue was too much for me to handle. And I just could only run 7 miles that day. By the time it took me to wake up, get food, get motivated, that's all I had time for. And so as far as the physical aspect of it, I never met my limit, which is unbelievable. I thought I'd be falling apart physically, but my limits were met mentally. And, there was one day where I hallucinated and saw hay balers turn into giant caterpillars and thought I had a bird following me for 23 miles and literally stopped and thought cows were talking to me. But that's a mental limitation. My body never gave out. And then as far as the timing thing, I don't think there was a single day where I didn't start sooner than 9 a.m. And so I was running through the heat a lot of the time, which if I would do it again, I'd start earlier. And that's what we'd all tell ourselves. But it's almost physically impossible between the mental load of planning and running and running for like 6 hours a day or whatever, and trying to eat before that and do PT before that and be all set and have a running plan for the day, to run before, 9 a.m. if you're waking up at 6.
Yeah.
So that was honestly really cool. Part of the challenge though was figuring out, with Connor crewing me for the majority of it, like it was just him and I for a lot of it. So just two people figuring out how do we do this? Where do you pick me up? What do you need to do?
Wow.
Yeah.
What as you got closer, what was the feeling of getting close to the finish? Was it a sense of relief? Was it a sense of an unfinished business? Did it feel harder as you got closer, or was that second, third, fourth win coming? Talk to us about that. I'm always curious.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think the beginning was the hardest part. Because I was in those trees for like a month, or not a month, a week, sorry. But I was in that like wooded area for like a week, where it was like boring, monotonous corridor of pine trees. And I'm used to wide open spaces and mountains and, the big sky. And so that was really mentally hard. And then as I neared, so I think from Orlando, I ran into Avon, and then I ran to Cardwell, Montana, and stayed at a campground there, which is awesome. And then from Cardwell, I ran into Norris, and then I ran to Ennis, and then I ran to Cameron, and then I ran to the Idaho state line. And I specifically planned the run to run through Ennis and the Madison Valley, because that's one of my favorite places in Montana. And I knew it, and I knew the roads. I knew the trails. I knew the ranchers. I knew, the cafes and the bars and the coffee shops to stop at. And so as I was coming into the home stretch, it was a lot of like joy. And like towards the end, my mom got out of the hospital and was able to join me for the second to last day. And she like got out of the hospital, came up to Montana, and walked like 1.5 miles with me. And like that, just like, to like meet her in at this old ranch homestead, that was our friends, like to meet her there and have people that had lost family members to cancer and have my mom show up. And it's the second to last day. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, like I'm emotional and crying. And there's like kind of this like the constructs that we put in front of ourselves that don't allow us to feel emotions had totally fallen. Because of like the stress of running, and I couldn't keep it suppressed anymore, because like, you're running for so much, your body, like it's just going to come out. That's just how being a human is. And so it was definitely just a positive, beautiful experience towards the end. And I was exhausted beyond belief, mentally. Even though my body felt good, it was hard to motivate. And, I could eat all the caffeine and sugar I want, and I'd still be like, all right, I guess I got to start running eventually. Like, okay, here we go again. And like Connor literally like pushing me out of the van to be like, get going. Like, here's your shoes, here's your socks, closing the door and leaving me. So I had no choice. Like that kind of like need for motivation was there at the end. But after after I warmed up a little bit, it was like, man, I did it. This is beautiful. This is amazing. Like, I can't wait to be done. But at the same time, I'm so glad I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you need, all of us need somebody to push us out the van door, whether, and that's their job. Maybe they would be in the same, I guarantee if Connor was doing that, you'd be like, Connor, get your butt out the door and get running. It's easier to do that when you're not the one running, but you need that person. My wife is very often, get your tail outside and go do what you said you were going to do. And then you start, and then you're like, this is awesome. I'm so glad I did this. I'm so glad you got me going this morning. You need it. We all need it in any stage of life. So what I was going to ask you, what did your siblings, your 5 younger siblings think about this? Think about their older sister doing this.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's cool is they actually I convinced them to come help crew me. So I had like 5 or 6 days of each of them coming to help crew me.
One at a time.
One at a time. Yep. And we lived in a van.
That's awesome.
So I had a van with a queen bed and a cot in it, and that was our vehicle.
And so were they like, this is so cool, or were they reluctant to crew? Like, are you sure you want to do this? Is this
Yeah,
kind of dumb?
I think it was half and half. I think half of them were like, Becca is crazy. Like, she's crazy. She's lost her mind. Like, she can't do this,
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And the other half of them being like, this is really cool. Like, my brother Boyd, who's 21, he crewed me for a couple days, and he's kind of quiet. He's kind of like the more quiet one of us. And towards the end of his like crew time, he was like, hey, I think I want to run across Wyoming. And like, that's so cool. Like, just having the concept that it's possible to do that is so cool. And to see, him be like, I think I'm going to start running. And like, I think I could run through the Wind Rivers. Like, that kind of stuff is so cool,
The inspiration, that is awesome. Well, take us through, did you achieve, I know you achieved what you set out to by finishing this run, but how do you feel like it helped you, metabolizing those emotions like you talked about before? How do you feel like it achieved those goals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think part of it was making the run bigger than myself. It's so easy to become selfish with negative emotions. And so opening it up to other people affected by cancer, they could sign up, they could join me. I had a number of friends from the ER I work at come and help run with me and join me for a day. That made it,
wow,
like, you're able to share this common concept of pain and grief, and seeing the run impact other people's lives in a positive way, where it's spreading the message of hope and like strength, and essentially like the theme that we're so much more capable of what we think we are. Like, we are our own limitations, and the human body can do amazing things, whether that's with chemotherapy or ultra running. Like, those are the same thing in my mind. And so to see, this outreach of people on social media, because I shared the whole thing on social media, and getting messages being like, hey, like, I just want to let you know, like, I met one guy, and he is on probably a 600-day running streak, and he just ran across his state. He ran 50 miles a day in 3 days. And I think he ran across Indiana for his dad with pancreatic cancer. And he's on day 600 of running. But he followed along on the Montana run. And then like he and I were talking, and 3 months later, he ran across his own state for his dad as a fundraiser. Like, that kind of stuff is like, that's taking something so negative, which is like this really negative, emotionally heavy experience, and turning it into inspiration and positivity. And that, like, I think that helped me a ton to see, like, it's not what happens to you, but it's what you do with it. That's empowering in a way.
Absolutely. Gives you confidence for whatever life might throw at you. Mm-hmm. That's what I get out of stories of folks that take something really negative and turn it positive is, okay, if I ever have to cross that bridge, I almost have a guide now, or a template to approach it and make it a really positive, impactful thing, not just for me, but for others. And how do you think this will change you? Because I know you really just finished a few months ago, so you're still in a lot of ways processing this. What do you think the legacy of this is going to be for you? And how do you think it's going to kind of change your trajectory in life?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great question. I already want to do something more, or continue doing stuff like this. I think using running to build community and tell a story is really beautiful, and I love doing it personally. And I've had a lot of people be like, so can I sign up for next year? And I'm like, what do you mean next year? Like, no, I'm not. What? So we'll see if I have like the resources and the time and energy to do it again next year, or maybe do something similar where it's more organized and more cohesive. Maybe it's not the whole state, but maybe it's a mountain range with people or something like that. So that kind of thing would be really cool. And
there's a lot you could do if you want to. That's the thing. I feel like a lot of people feel pressure, like, what's next? And I mean, if that's what you set out to do and that's all you wanted to do, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But if you want to do
Yep.
more, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a couple running project ideas brewing in my head of what I could do next. And so we'll see. We'll see how things shake out.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. I've got a friend that started, he paddleboarded from the Bahamas to Florida because his daughter was dealing with cystic fibrosis, and he and some friends, and it's this horrible disease. And anyway, he's trying to find a cure for his daughter who was going to die of it. And a couple friends, and now I think they're on year like 12 or 15, and there's like 300 people a year that on paddleboards go like the 100 miles from the Bahamas to Florida every summer. Every summer. So it in a lot of ways, this is like that. You did something, other people want to join. They more or less do that same trip they did the first year, just with lots of people. And so, I mean, they raise millions of dollars for Piper is his daughter. So
That's awesome.
Something like that. Anyway, that's keep it going. You're making a dent in the world. And last question, and I'll let you go. Was it hard to readjust back to quote normal life after this?
Dude, absolutely. I don't know if I'm sick in the head or what, but I loved it. I loved running. Like to just be like, I have 2 pairs of shorts, I have 6 pairs of running shoes, and I just get to run for 8 hours a day. I'm like, this is great.
It's like you get to be an elk out on the prairie or a pronghorn. You just get to think about survival, and that's it.
Yep.
It's pretty awesome.
And it was hard to like reintegrate. Like people would hear about the run, and I came back and like my body changed. Like I was super vascular and like ripped and and sunburnt, and I had weird tan lines, and I'd go back into work, and it was hard to reintegrate. I'm not gonna lie about that. I think people kind of looked at me like, what is, like, you got something loose in the head? And it was like, maybe, but I'm happy about it.
Because, it's just people didn't see it for a couple weeks, or a month. And so to them, that time flies by. For you, that felt like an eternity.
Yeah.
After my first big trip, I went back to college, and I failed 2 classes. I just couldn't, make the adjustment. It was too much epicness, and then right back into class. So, you're changed. And it is hard sometimes, but Becca, I know you got to go in like 1 minute, but thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad we finally had the chance to talk and meet, and no hurricanes this time. Thanks, Mason.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, talk soon.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.